Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. And, you know, from time to time, and lately I've seen this pop up a few times, there are people questioning with XRP's price being what it is, staying at whatever price level it may be at for seemingly prolonged periods of time, and that's all relative, but prolonged periods of time, especially when good news is announced. Is it the case that Ripple is in fact suppressing the price of XRP? Well, I'm going to share with you my thoughts on that, as well as the thoughts of Ripple CTO David Schwartz, who is one of the co-creators of the XRP itself and the XRP ledger. So I'm going to talk about that. And I've got a few other topics I'm going to include with you in this particular video, including the new XRP Explorer, which shows the ledgers actually closing in real time on your very own computer. So it's just a fun little visualization. But before we get going here, if you would please delicately tap that like button, and also go ahead and subscribe if you'd like to hear the soothing sound of my voice in the future. You will be reminded that I make content, all right? So that's, oh, and also I want to say this. You know what? Hey, it's July 4th. It's America's birthday. America! I am a United States citizen, and I live in the Midwest, and I understand that, almost half of people listening to me don't live in the United States, but hey, this is our Independence Day, so to everybody here in America, happy 4th of July, everybody. I'd be remiss if I didn't at least say that. But let's go ahead and jump into the content here now. There's a tweet. Now, what I'm about to show you, this is actually from September of 2017, so it's old, but it's absolutely relevant today. And you know, it's funny, you could pull this same piece up that I'm going to share with you right now. You can pull it up a year or two or three from now, because I have a feeling that people will still bring up this subject from time to time. But there's a person on Twitter, handle is XRP Official, and he tweeted out to Joel Katz, that's the Twitter handle for David Schwartz, Ripple CTO. He tweeted out, David, would it be beneficiary to XRP to have a higher trade price? If so, how so? Thank you. And so David responded, and let me read through this response with you here. And the tweet states, a higher price for XRP would help Ripple several ways. And then he has this little graphic so that he could beat the what's the threshold? How many characters can gain a tweet now? I know that it was a increase at some point within the last several years or so. But anyway, to get around that, he just did a screen capture of him, what he wrote elsewhere. It's probably XRP chat, I'm guessing. .com. But anyway, so here's what he wrote. The most obvious benefit to Ripple of an increased price for XRP is that it increases the value of Ripple's XRP. This means that Ripple has a greater ability to incentivize partners and liquidity. It also means that Ripple can raise more revenue by selling XRP. And so on that particular point, it's always seemed weird to me that anybody would think, first of all, that Ripple would not want the price to go up, given that they have substantial holdings. Ripple, the company, holds over half of currently the XRP in existence. And Ripple does own an LLC. It's called XRP 2 LLC, which is a registered money services business, and they use that to sell XRP essentially over the counter, because they're selling to institutions, financial institutions, and with the quantity that they're selling, if they were to try and if financial institutions were to try and buy, or any other entity that's interested in purchasing large quantities, if they tried to purchase these massive quantities on an exchange, well, that would cause the price to crater. And so the cool thing by selling OTC over the counter is that the transaction isn't visible to the public, really. I mean, it's okay. The transaction, if XRP is moving, yes, it's visible on the blockchain, but is it visible on exchanges? No, it is not. You can't see the actual XRP being bought and sold on exchanges, and that's by design. XRP isn't the only cryptocurrency to be bought and sold in that way. Bitcoin's bought and sold that way, and other cryptocurrencies as well. And so, and that's just one of the reasons that businesses buy and sell over the counter. Maybe I can make a video on the other reasons that they do some other time, but that's the most pertinent one to what I'm talking about here in terms of, look, Ripple doesn't want the price of XRP to go down. They also are not terribly interested in parabolic moves upward. They are interested in long, sustained growth over a period of time. And I think that benefits the ecosystem as a whole. But moving on here, next part that he wrote in this particular piece, indirectly, more value almost always means more liquidity and trade volume. XRP already has each of the other characteristics needed to be a good intermediary asset, but it will be initially limited by the available liquidity. Greater liquidity will give Ripple more flexibility to target larger corridors. And this is an important point. People have brought up the fact that, of course, as the price of XRP goes up over time, that would be perhaps one of the most important things in order to enable larger transactions. And price does matter, but what actually matters more than the price of XRP in terms of actually moving value, utilizing XRP as a bridge currency? It's the liquidity of XRP. And let me give you a simple, just if you want to understand on a conceptual level why that matters, I'd be happy to explain that for you. Consider if XRP, I'm just going to make up a crazy hypothetical price that may or may not ever be reached. So let's just say XRP hits $500 each, because it doesn't matter what the numbers. I'm just going to make up a really big one. You might think, oh, wow, well, if XRP is $500, what could you not move? There's 100 billion of them. They're $500 each. Okay, but let's go ahead and factor liquidity into this scenario now. If you have XRP that is hypothetically, just for the fun, again, making up a number, $500, but let's say that none of the XRP is for sale. Just in now that wouldn't happen, I know, but just so you can understand what I'm getting at here. Let's say the last sale price, because what is the price of XRP? It's the market rate. So that assumes that the current going rate for XRP is $500, and let's just say that there's no longer any XRP available for sale. Nobody's interested in selling any XRP further, and it's no longer available on exchanges. Well, understand that the way the XRP technology works via XRapid, the way Ripple programmed this, is that if you want to move money from one country to another, for example, there's one corridor here that remittance companies are using today. Let's say it's I believe Bittrex is the U.S. partner, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so and this is all automated through XRapid. But if you're in the United States, you'd buy XRP on the official XRapid partner exchange in the U.S., and then that XRP would be transferred to, let's say, Mexico. And then on the Mexican exchange, it's sold into the Mexican peso, right? And that's all instantaneous in a matter of seconds. At least the XRP portion of it. Local rails can take longer, but anyway, so a few seconds. That's actually transferred there, and so once that's traded into the converted into the Mexican peso, the transaction is complete. And so the reason that all of this is possible is because the XRP that's utilized, the XRP that's automatically purchased on the exchange, on the Bittrex exchange, and then transferred to the Mexican exchange, which, what is that, Bitso in Mexico. The reason that's possible is because people are buying and selling. So the software, it's that there's an algorithm. It's a really efficient path-seeking algorithm. Just finds the most costly method to buy and sell XRP to complete the transaction. Well, because people are buying and selling, that's what makes that possible. And so, hypothetically, if the last market rate was $500 per XRP, and then so that's what people were buying for, but then in this weird scenario where it's just no longer being bought or sold, even if the price was worth $500, if it's not being bought or sold on exchanges, which is the liquidity portion of that's what we're talking about when we say liquidity, you can't use XRapid to facilitate these transactions. So you couldn't use XRP as a bridge for cross-border payments. People have to actually actively be buying and selling it in order for that to happen. So high price, yeah, it's good because you can move more as you can complete larger transactions as as the price goes up, but what's more important is that you have this liquidity, and so the more exchange in which people are actively buying and selling XRP, the more you can move. And so that's why it's better to have, and if you want to actually just use the technology that is XRapid, I mean, yeah, we all want high price, I get that, because we're invested in XRP and we're speculators, got it. But if you just want to make the technology functional, the price is almost irrelevant. It can be rather low, especially if you're a market maker. If XRP's at a penny or $1 or $10, it doesn't matter if you're a market maker, because you're just buying money off the buying and selling of XRP, rinse and repeat. And if you're an exchange, you're getting your cut of that as well, of course. And that's kind of the incentive to partner with Ripple and be an XRapid partner. But it doesn't matter in terms of functionality. As long as there's enough people buying and selling at a sufficient level, you can move XRP and complete transactions regardless of how big they are. It's just that if XRP is at a lower value, if there's suddenly a huge transaction coming through, it's more likely that you could wipe out a ton of the XRP that's currently on the market. And of course, if stuff like that happens, then there's always a concern of, okay, what's that going to do to the market rate of XRP? And that's not good for volatility. And so that's why we're experiencing slow, gradual growth over time. That's what we're actually seeing here. And there's a reason that Ripple's been targeting specific corridors. We know they're really going after remittance, to be honest with you right now. They may have banks and financial institutions that are using, maybe they have enough of a handful of them already using XRapid, because they do have they announced the other day, over 20 businesses that are actually utilizing XRapid, and not all of them have been announced. Maybe some of them want to keep private, but regardless, I just think that as time passes, you'll see more banks and financial institutions jump in and start utilizing XRP, because if it is a better product, it's faster and complete transactions at a cheaper cost. Of course, they're going to use it. But in the short term, remittance companies seem to be much less hesitant to change. They're much less risk averse relative to the type of risk that banks and financial institutions are willing to take on, and that's where there's so much friction, especially in corridors like U.S. to Philippines, U.S. to Mexico, and so that's why you're seeing that take place right there. Anyway, next piece within David Schwartz comment here. So he wrote, also, to some extent, Ripple's success is limited by people's perception of Ripple's success. If you think Ripple's payment technology is going to be the next big thing, you'll be willing to invest the money and resources needed to implement and deploy it. If you think Ripple is a scam, you're not going to integrate it or perhaps even look at it. Whether it makes sense or not, XRP's price is seen as a measure of Ripple's success or likelihood of future success. And that's absolutely true. And so, what we're doing here, and it just makes me think, when I read that, I just thought about the fact of the matter is that we're speculating, and people have been speculating on XRP, dating back 7 years, and largely since Ripple is, there's no bones about it, the most prominent developer building on top of the XRP ledger. And for a long time, they were the first, right? If I'm not mistaken, they were the very first, correct? It was the founders of Ripple that were, in many ways, linked to the creation of this particular coin. You could say like Jed McCaleb in particular, who is no longer with Ripple; he's with Stellar now. But anyway, so back then when this all started, what caused people to jump in? If you're going to invest in XRP back then with just one primary developer, Ripple back then anyway, you had to believe that there's a certain likelihood that, first of all, there's a chance that this business plan could make sense, and also that it's not a scam, that there's faith in the company. And then, of course, the ecosystem's been built out over years. It would be a lot more scary to jump into this and invest 7 years ago relative to today, because, there wasn't, understand, back then, XRP existed, there was no XCurrent, there was no XRapid, and nobody, they didn't even know what they were going to call it. They didn't know the best way to go to market. At first, when Ripple went to market, they were thinking, hey, basically the concept was force banks, if they're going to jump in with the technology, to utilize XRP for cross-border payments, and they found that didn't work. And then they found out that, just the messaging portion of the software is so horrendous that just improving that was a product in and of itself. And then, the next step, of course, is saying, hey, okay, you got better messaging through XCurrent. How about your liquidity woes? What can we do there? And so that's kind of where they're at now, and that's why you're seeing adoption occur at the pace which it is. It's just newer technology, and it should speed up in certain cases. But regardless, moving forward, you're going to have faith in terms of XRP Price. You're going to have faith that the developers building on top of the ledger are reputable, and beyond that, ultimately having success. And that's why it's great that you're seeing so many other developers come out and actually build on top of the XRP ledger. And that's why I'm so thrilled with Ripple's Spring initiative, because they are backing business entities that actually have unique, original ideas, ways to operate brand new businesses that actually utilizes XRP, because that's one of the components required in order to receive investment through Ripple through the Spring initiative. Right. All right, continuing on with what David wrote here. It is also important that it not be terribly expensive to hold XRP. A higher price will mean that a similarly sized cell will produce less volatility. So a higher price could mean a lower cost to hold XRP. So long as XRP's general price direction is up, the volatility can be hedged without much difficulty. And that's kind of what I was saying as far as Ripple's intent to have. Yes, of course, they do want the price of XRP to go up. They own a ton of it. Why would they want it to be flat or go down? That's kind of silly. It's like these are weird conspiracy theories that don't really have any logic to them, But they would prefer that it be more stable, because a stable asset is, for some use cases that it'll make it easier to be adopted. It can make all sorts of entities more likely to jump in. So I think that's just the case. And then he continued here, and this is towards the end of the point he was going to make. And I do like this point. This is true. He writes, when Bitcoin sold for $1, you couldn't really use them to buy or sell a house. You can now. Bigger transactions require bigger value. The higher the price of XRP, the larger the payments Ripple can target. When you're expecting exponential growth, even a small increase in your starting point can pay huge dividends down the line. And I think that last part kind of speaks for itself without any additional commentary for me. But yeah, look, if you hear anybody saying, "Hey, Ripple's holding the price down," this or that, it's just silly nonsense. Like there's no rationality to it. And you ask these people what the proof is, and it's always just their gut feeling. There is no evidence. It's completely counterintuitive if you ask me. So that's where I'm at that. All right, next piece here. This was fun to watch. This is about a 16-minute or so video from blockslive.tv, and they titled this piece, it was an interview, "Will XRP's Utility Drive the Price?" And I want to point this out because it's got prominent XRP community member Matt Hamilton being interviewed on here, and he's at Hammertoe on Twitter, and I've spoken to him a number of times. Real sharp guy, And so he was asked a lot of poignant questions. To me, it was like a lot of this was kind of like XRP 101, but I want to share the link to you because I found it to be a fascinating video. I thought that some people watching this might want to actually watch this. But he was talking because he was asked the question, okay, what's up with XRP? Why would people want to invest in this relative to Bitcoin or other assets out there? And he had what I think is a very smart answer, and it's the true answer, and it's what I've always believed. It's that it comes down to real-world utility, because there are thousands of cryptocurrencies out there, and pretty much none of them are actually being used in the commercial production of anything. Pretty much just XRP, right? Because even if the blockchains are used, it's like in other cryptocurrencies, platforms, is the coin itself being used? And the answer is no. But XRP is actually being used via XRapid. It's the first time in human history that's ever occurred. And so if there's a real use for cryptocurrencies and real developers are building on top of it, it makes sense, and it could have some staying power. And so we got into that particular angle and a number of other topics. So I won't spoil everything for you, but if you want to check this out, just know that he's this guy right here, Matt Hamilton. He is a wealth of knowledge, absolutely. And he's very active within the Twitter community. So just wanted to kind of spotlight it since he was featured here. All right, now next, check this out. This is fun to take a look at. So this is I can't remember who I found this from, but this is this is xrpl.org. And this was actually released the other day, this part that I'm about to read for you, but it says, "Discover the XRP Ledger with Explorer." And it states, "Today, a new XRP Ledger Explorer is available for both testnet and production at explorer.xrpl.org. At its core, the XRP Ledger is a replicated state machine. The state, or historical information, is updated every 3 to 5 seconds through a process called consensus across a global network of independent servers. Collectively, the XRP Ledger network can be referred to as a distributed ledger, or more commonly, a blockchain. One of the benefits of a public blockchain is its transparency. Like any public blockchain, the XRP Ledger allows anyone with the right skills and tools to look up historical information that is immutably stored in it. At the time of this writing, the XRP Ledger has closed over 48 million ledgers, confirmed over 900 million transactions, and opened over 1.5 million accounts in its first 7 years of operations." That's amazing. Like, those numbers are staggering, and it barely had any adoption for the first portion of those years. That's cool. Anyway, it proceeds. The new Explorer serves as a tool to help people look up historical transactions, accounts, ledgers, fees, exchange rates, timestamps, sequence numbers, node uptime, IP addresses, topology, versions, and peers. And so when you click on this piece right here, and I already have it open, so I'm not going to click on it. Here's another tab with it. Check this out. So here's the XRP ledgers closing in real time, and this is just like mesmerizing. I just want to kind of like stare at it, and you can sit here and like count. It's roughly every 3 seconds one of these closes. 3 to 4 seconds. Just kind of varies depending on, I guess. I'm sure there are a few technical reasons behind that, because we've always been told that the ledgers close in 3 to 5 seconds. At this point, it says they're closing every 3.94 seconds. So you consider 1, 2, 3. And then it closes. There we go. 1, 2, 3. And then it's just, it's more like 4 seconds, but still, I just love seeing this. And so I was looking at this, and I was like, what the heck do all these dots mean here? And I read this from Mr. B, XRP on Twitter, and he quoted the explanation for that from Wietse Wind, who is the creator of the XRP Tipbot. And it states, the dots are transactions in the closed ledger. Blue equals offer, red is offer canceled, green equals payments. And under the transactions, you can see the validator. So that's what we're looking right here, here on the screen here. So it's just a visualization of all of this, and I thought it was kind of cool to look at and see. This is the XRP ledger actually closing in real time, and you can look at the ledgers closing. You can count these. So 48,437,027. You know, that's that ledger right there, and then the next one just churns out, and this is all automated, and that's why the consensus mechanism is so incredible. Relative to the alternative that was originally came up in terms of blockchain, which is proof of work mining. Because consensus, it just has to do with the arrangement in which orders come in, and we don't really particularly care about the order in which transactions come in, as long as the majority of validators and nodes can actually just agree on what that is. It just doesn't matter what the order is. And so why might that matter? And you can imagine, just with lag time all over the planet, because also understand the XRP ledger, this is global, right? It's absolutely global. So if you've got transactions occurring all over the world, you could have transactions that seemingly start at the same time, but depending on where you are on the planet, just because of lag time, you might receive them in different orders. So what the consensus algorithm does is it just takes a look at what order did most that receive these payments, in what order did they receive them, and then that's what you go with, because the order doesn't really particularly matter. And then when you use that method instead of proof of work, which is just solving a useless puzzle consuming a ton of energy, when you go with consensus, though, you get much faster speeds, and so that's why it's just superior, and it solves the same problem. It solves the double spend problem, because as long as the consensus is that, hey, this is the order in which transactions were received, okay, ledger's closed, and this is immutable. There is no chain reorganization within the XRP ledger, just not possible. It's all cryptographically secure. So that's in a nutshell why it's superior to proof of work. That wasn't really what I wanted to delve into, but I just thought I'd mention it since we're sitting here staring at the beauty of the consensus algorithm at work here, right? All right, and here we go. This is from @Zerpound, and I read this from him on Twitter, and it rang true for me, so I wanted to share this with you, but he tweeted this out. He wrote, I've been dollar cost averaging my XRP, buying the same amount once a week for over a year. And so for those of you may know what this means. If you don't know what dollar cost averaging means, it just means you're buying an asset at a particular, over a prolonged period of time, whatever the time period may be. And of course, the price is going to go up and down over that time period. So you're buying at higher prices, lower prices compared to maybe what you start at, but you buy at regular intervals there. And then you take the total of what the dollar value of what you actually spent versus the quantity that you have, and you can figure out what your average price was to actually buy in. And basically, what you're doing is you're spreading out your risk, so you're getting a more blend of over a specific period of time. What was the actual value of the asset over that period of time, rather than did you happen to buy at too high of a price, or did you happen to buy too low? So you're basically just spreading your risk out, and it gets a more even price. It just kind of flattens it out. And so that's what dollar cost averaging is. And then he continues, I've been really good at not FOMOing in and buying more than once a week most of the time. This uphold chart shows my one FOMO slip up this month right before the price dropped, LOL. And so this is a personal just screenshot that he shared from himself. So, I can relate to that. I've been real good about this. I started buying XRP in November of 2017. And as it started to run up, I did buy a little, and then I realized that it was kind of silly, so I stopped buying along the way up to the top. So, it got up to $3.92 according to Live Coin Watch. That was the all-time high, and I stopped buying well before that. And I didn't start buying again until the price had cratered, and I mean cratered from its all-time high. Once it got down to, I don't remember exactly where I first bought back in, but it was probably somewhere around the 50-cent mark, maybe it was 55 cents. And I decided, hey, I want to buy more. I was like, too bad it's a bear market, not fun, but I'm going to dollar cost average in, because when it was running up, I didn't know that it was going to stop and then the price was going to reverse. And I thought, oh, this is pretty much all the XRP I'm ever going to be able to reasonably afford, what I was able to initially purchase in like November and December of 2017. But then once it did go down, I was like, oh, well, I knew so much about the project. The project's, all the developers building on top of the XRP ledger. I was like, well, this isn't going away. And by then I fully understood crypto's here to stay. So I was like, let people panic sell. And I was like, I'm dollar cost averaging in. And so once it hit that point, I started buying on a regular basis, all the way down to, I think the lowest I bought it, I missed the all-time low, but I wasn't too far off from it. I got as low as about 25 cents, and I remember the lowest I bought it on the way down was like 28 cents, and it was just mind-blowing me. I was thrilled. I was like, oh my God, people keep your panicking, keep it coming. I will take as much as I can reasonably spend on this right now, so I just kind of filled up my bags. And then the way back up, I've been continuing to buy because the price hasn't gotten too outrageous. So I will continue to buy, just because I've set aside a little bit that I'm willing to spend each month. And without going to the specifics of what that is, I will say that until there's another parabolic run up in terms of price, like, I'm going to keep buying. I don't know exactly when I'll stop, but when people go nuts and you just see it jump up and jump up and jump up, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to step on the sideline. Humans, do what you do. I know what you're going to do it again. There is going to be a parabolic run up, and I'm just making sure that I'm prepared for when that happens. That's what I believe is going to happen. This is not financial advice. But that's what I decided I want to do for myself, and so that's where we are. That's where we are with that. So I just thought I'd kind of share that with you because I could totally relate to what Zerpound was saying here, because sometimes when there's price action occurring, because it still is volatile up and down, even though I've been mostly buying on the way down and a little bit on the way up here, it's volatile. And at times I was like, oh God, I hope it doesn't really go off parabolic right now, because what I was doing is every time I was buying, I was setting up stretch goals for myself. And I don't know if I said like 4 or 5 where I wanted to get to the next level of my holdings of XRP. And I very recently, within the last couple of weeks, hit like a goal that I never thought I would hit. Back in November of 2017, when I thought that parabolic run was it, and like the price had taken off and was never going back down. So I took advantage of that opportunity. But again, I've just been setting stretch goals for myself, and I'm going to keep doing that until I see crazy parabolic run up, which maybe it'll happen this year, maybe it'll happen early next year, or even past that. I don't know. But that's kind of my thought on that, so I thought I'd share that with you. Last piece I'm going to share with you, and this is just a fun little factoid that I was unaware of. This is a tweet from Bitstamp, and they tweeted out, "Did you know? In July 2010, the Wikipedia page for Bitcoin got deleted because the topic was deemed not notable enough." That's comical to me. And it goes on. Today, the Bitcoin Wikipedia article gets almost twice as many daily views as the US dollar article. 7,800 versus 4,800 over past 3 months. And so it's so funny that like people did not understand how just completely world-changing this technology would be. And how could you? So I can't blame somebody for thinking, oh, what is this garbage, this fake internet money, and deleting it. But it's funny in hindsight to look back and be like, yeah, it was absolutely major. So that was a fun little fact I hadn't read before today. But anyway, that's all I got for you today. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea.